Hello, boys and girls. How are you doing on this Tuesday afternoon? Except where Jill is actually evening, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, yeah.
But guys, thank you so much for joining us here on Angel's Literary Cafe, boys and girls. I am super duper excited because, boys and girls, we get to hang out with Jill Paul on today, guys, for her latest release, The Manhattan Girls. And Jill, by the way, this cover is gorgeous. We are going to talk about that as well. But can you introduce yourself to the people, my friend?
I will. Thank you. Gosh, it's so exciting to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me, Angela. My name's Gill Paul. I'm British, as you can probably hear. In fact, I'm Scottish. There's a distinction there. And I've written 11 historical novels now, of which Manhattan Girls is the latest. I can't get the camera to see it. And I quite often write about real historical characters, particularly women that I think have been misjudged by male historians. I love resurrecting their careers and letting modern generations know about them. So that's one of the things I love doing. And I'm here in sunny London, and it's just after 6 o'clock in the evening now.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us here on the cafe. Boys and girls, if you are just joining us, I am hanging out with the one and only Jill Paul, guys, and she's here to share a little bit with us about her latest release, The Manhattan Girls. And speaking of your latest release, we have to talk about this cover. It is gorgeous, by the way. Tell us about this cover. Did you give them some insight of what you wanted to see, or they just came up with this amazing cover? Please share.
I sent a load of images of women in 1920s dress, and I said I wanted to have a Manhattan background, but the designer, Kim Yo, came up with this. And in fact, the Chrysler building is slightly out of the period that I'm writing about. But you know what? Who cares? Because it's gorgeous. And I really wish, and I think I should have written it into my contract, that I get to keep that dress. They didn't. Nobody's agreed to that yet.
Wow. Well, Jill, I want to let you know we also have Paulette Brown, who's also living in London, hanging out with us on today. Paulette, thank you so much for joining us, my friend, as we chat with Jill Paul on today as well. So thank you for sharing that about the cover. But yeah, I know as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh my goodness, this is an amazing cover. And Jill, we have to talk about the title, The Manhattan Girls. Now, was this particular title your working title, or it just kind of like evolved and this is the title that we ended up with? Share with us about the title of this story.
So I never, ever get to keep my own working titles ever. In fact, the file on my computer is called Bad Girls. That was just in my head. You know, they were kind of girls behaving badly type.
Yes, in the 1920s.
That was never. But when I first delivered the manuscript, it had a really cumbersome title. It was called The Bootleggers Benevolent Society Bridge Club. Which, you know, was never going to make it as the actual title, unfortunately. But it was my British publisher that came up with The Manhattan Girls, and everybody, it's great for me when it's the same title on both sides of the Atlantic, because otherwise it gets really confusing.
I love that. Well, the title is catching, boys and girls. The cover is catching as well. And so Jill Paul is here with us today, guys, sharing about the Manhattan Girls. Thank you guys so much for joining us on today. We have Veronica that has joined us. We have author Sharon Blunt that has joined us as well. Thank you, ladies. And so, guys, you know how we do it here on the cafe. It's just so exciting. You guys probably noticed that we're actually hanging out lunchtime because Jill is all the way from London, boys and girls, hanging out with us on today. So, Jill, I want you to share with us a little bit about what inspired this amazing stories about these four women. And we're going to talk about them a little bit later. But I want to know what inspired this story, The Manhattan Girls.
Well, I mean, what inspired it was my childhood adoration of Dorothy Parker, who I just think is the wittiest woman in the world ever. But I was always fascinated by not just the fact that she's got this incredible rapier wit, but the emotional fragility that went with that. And I wanted just to explore that juxtaposition, really. And I was looking for the right story to talk, and I didn't really want to write. She hung out at the Algonquin in the 1920s with a load of press hacks who sat around laughing at each other's witticisms and slightly misogynist atmosphere from what I can pick up. I really didn't want to write about them particularly. And then I came across a line that said that she joined a bridge group with these 3 other amazing women. They started their own bridge group. And I thought, oh, there's a story. And, so for me, the core of the book is about female friendship and a group of women friends that kind of get together, they support each other, they look after each other, they fall out sometimes. But that's what it's really about.
That's friendship, right? Yeah.
Oh, sure.
And one of the things that, guys, like on the back of the book, it also tells you too, when it describes this book, it was like in a 1920s version. Y'all ready for this? Of Sex in the City, as Dorothy Parker, one of the wittiest women to ever wield a pen, and her 3 fabulous friends, how they navigate life, love, and careers in New York City. Okay, tell us about that, because we got some Sex in the City fans, out there. So tell us how this is kind of intertwined with that Sex in the City feel about Miss Dorothy Parker and her Dorothy Parker and her friends.
Yeah, well, I think when you get a group of women hanging out together, you've always got different types in there. You've got the organizer, you've got the one that kind of brings everybody together, you've got the really chaotic one, and in this instance that was Dorothy, of course. You've got the kind of the gentle, kind of one, and there's just different types in there. There's the one that's the good cook, there's the one that's the funny one, and I thought the types that they've got in Sex and the City kind of really translate into the types I've got in this book as well. Yes. And the interactions between them as well, and who's getting on with who at whatever time. So yeah, that's the elevator pitch for it. But
I love it. Look, so present day Sex and the City meets 1920s version. I love that. I love that, guys. If you're just joining us, I'm hanging out with the one and only Gill Paul, boys and girls. She is sharing with us her latest release, The Manhattan Girls. Of course, you guys know how we do it here. If you have a question for Gill Paul, put it in the comment section. We'll be sure to include you guys as well. And so, Gill, for the individuals that are watching, this is a biographical historical fiction novel about Dorothy Parker and, of course, her amazing friends as well. But when you think about this story as a whole and her story being told as well, what actually came first for you to write this story? Was it the character of Dorothy Parker and her friends? Or was it just how you would kind of embed this plot for this story to be told?
Oh, that's difficult. I was particularly interested in the fact that this is one of the first generations of women that can have not just jobs, but fulfilling careers, that can rent their own apartments, that they're driving car. Well, they're not driving cars. I don't think Dorothy ever drove a car. That would be a disaster. But they're leading quite independent lives, looking after themselves in a way that previous generations hadn't been able to. But at the same time, they're living in this very male-dominated society. So it's a struggle. And as a kind of feminist, I wanted to explore how that worked for them, what the sticking points were, what held them back, and how they got the strength to go on and fight the battles that they fought. So there's a lot of that in it.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that as well. Hello, Midnight Ace of Book Bar. Thank you for hanging out with us on today. Guys, if you're just joining us, hanging out with Gill Paul. She's telling us about her latest release, The Manhattan Girls. And of course, guys, like, tag, and share. Tell a friend. Use their lunch break. Come on down to the cafe and hang out with us and find out more about this amazing story. And so, when you think about these characters, guys, and we're not going to leave you hanging, we're going to tell you a little bit about these characters. I mean, you have Dorothy, you have Jane Grant, Winifred, you have Peggy. When you think about these particular characters, and of course, we'll start with Dorothy Parker. If you had to describe her, what would you say to describe her?
She's just incredibly funny, and her humor hasn't really dated in 100 years. It's still incredibly modern. One of the lines that I love is, she says, if you want to know what God thinks of money, just look at the people he gave it to. I love that. You can just look in any page of any newspaper, and that's true nowadays. And, she was very cutting. She was sometimes self-deprecating, but she'd had a very difficult childhood. She'd lost her mother, her stepmother, her father, her uncle died on the Titanic, her brother disappeared and abandoned the family. So she's emotionally very fragile. She's in an unhappy marriage when this story opens, and she's just all over the shop. She's chaotic. She's got sacked from her previous job. She was writing theatre reviews for Vanity Fair, but she criticised the wife of one of the big advertisers in Vanity Fair. She said was like an erotic review dancer in her latest show, and that was it. Dottie got sacked. So. Oh.
Yes. Okay. And so next up, Jane Grant. Tell us a little bit about Jane.
Well, Jane is a complete contrast. She's a Kansas girl. She's completely feet on the ground. She could do anything, that woman. She was the first woman reporter at the New York Times. She co-founded a society for women to be able to keep their maiden names after marriage.
Yes.
She set up an organization to help other women get into journalism. She was tough,
Yes.
Married at the point that the story opens to Harold Ross, who they're trying to start a magazine together. But yeah, Jane is just somebody that doesn't take any nonsense whatsoever. And I absolutely adore her. Really, really enjoyed looking into her.
I love that. And the fact that you are bringing these stories to life, and that their stories, that you're shining light on some of the amazing things that these women were able to do during this time period is amazing as well. And so, of course, we have Winifred. What can you share with us about Winifred's character?
Well, I can tell you the character I made up for her. In fact, I could find very little in my research about Winifred. I know what shows she appeared in. I've seen the reviews of the show. I think she was an extraordinary, very transformational actress. She just, when she starred in a show, she turned into that character on stage. But the rest of it, I'm guessing, I've talked to actress friends about Winifred's career, and what theatre world was like at that time. And we've just kind of guessed about her life because I couldn't get the true story.
Right.
Might be completely wrong. I've given her a character, but it's based on the facts that I know. But then I just, I always make up, the gaps make it easy. It's easier in a way to write about somebody that you don't know much about. Because with Dorothy, I know so much. There's so many biographies, and she's mentioned in other people's books, and you feel you kind of have to mostly stick to the facts. So it's about, and you can't include everything. That's crazy.
Right.
So you have to choose bits and leave bits out. But yeah, with Winifred, I could just kind of go my own way a bit. So that was fun. That was loads.
Nice. And of course, Peggy, tell us a little bit about her. We can't leave her out.
Of course not. I mean, of all the women in the group, Peggy is the one that you would really want as your friend. She's the one that you call in the middle of the night. She's the one that turns up at parties with a tray of handmade canapes. She's just a lovely woman. She was working in a magazine, Condé Nast, at the time, but she wanted to be a novelist. So at night, she's going home and trying to write her first novel. And I just absolutely love Peggy. I think she's a great character. I think she had quite a sharp tongue as well as Dorothy.
Yes. Boys and girls, again, if you are just joining us, we are hanging out with Gill Paul on today, guys. Her latest release, The Manhattan Girls, and she is just giving us a new release exclusive about this amazing story. And so, Gill, again, we are just so excited to have you here and to be able to share your new release with us as well. And so I want to ask you, because when you think of the 1920s, of course, most of our thoughts go to the jazz age. It's just such a fun time period. A lot was going on in the 20s or what have you. But when you think about that, what did you enjoy about writing about that time period, as well as infusing Dorothy Parker and her four friends and their life during this time period as well? What did you enjoy about that?
Well, it's the anarchy of it, really. The fact that you've got, the law, prohibition is the law. Nobody's supposed to be drinking, and everybody's drinking. People are drinking more than they drank before prohibition. You can buy alcohol
And selling
wherever.
alcohol.
You can buy it in taxi cabs. You can buy it in beauty salons. You know, it's just crazy.
Look,
Like
and Gill,
bootleggers.
the purr stuff, I may add.
Well, it was probably pretty disgusting, I imagined. Yeah, yeah. That's why they invented cocktails, to mix up, you know, to get rid of the taste.
Right, sweeten it up a bit.
Ethanol, the grain ethanol that they were using. But, you know, basically that law was turning just normal middle-class people into criminals, because, you know, they were going out, they didn't want to give up. They didn't want the government telling them what they could do in their private lives like that.
Yeah.
And the other thing that was happening as a result of this was that the bootleggers were creating these enormously wealthy gangsters, like Al Capone in Chicago,
Yes.
Rothstein in New York. They're all becoming massively wealthy on the back of prohibition. So it's a dangerous time as well as a,
Yeah.
but then, as you were saying, it's also party central, because the war is over. They've just got through the Spanish flu, which killed even more than the war itself. And the hemlines are rising. There's, you know, there's the booze, there's the jazz. There's so many clubs opening up that you can go and dance in, and great musicians. Yeah, so it is party time, but there's a dark side as well.
Yeah, yeah. And when you think about this, the story itself, the Manhattan Girls, and when you think about, you know, just the story and the time period and all of that stuff, and all of the information that you needed to gather to bring this amazing story to life, can you share with us, what was your research like?
Oh, that's the fun bit. I love the way you keep showing the cover, by the way. It's very kind of you. Yeah, the research is the fun bit. And I have to say, I always try and do the research in summer, so I can just go out and sit underneath a tree with a pile of books and
Oh, wow.
That's my working day.
Okay.
It's not quite working out that way this year, unfortunately, because you know, I've been doing a lot of promotion for this book, and I've got the edits back for the next one. So yeah, I haven't been sitting under too many trees, but yeah, I love the research. So the first thing I do is just go into used bookstores and find all the books I can about these people. So for example, Jane Grant had written a memoir. I had to have that. Peggy Leach had 3 novels that were published in the 1920s, so I managed to track them down.
Oh,
I just,
wow.
you know, all the the Dorothy Parker Society have a website with all the books listed about her. There's videos. Yeah, you just grab everything, and I've got a system. I use yellow Post-it notes. These
Okay.
and I just, while I'm reading, I'm just sticking little notes on pages that I want to remember. So the books end up looking like these vast yellow hedgehogs, really.
Wow.
I go
I
a lot of things.
So guys, you're getting a little bit of tea. She's spilling the tea of some of her writing hacks and must-haves when she's writing her stories as well. Thank you so much for sharing those interesting facts with us. I love that.
Yeah, but then you go back to the page with the yellow sticky on it. I'm thinking, why did I put that there? What was that? What was that one about? It's not the best. It's not the most perfect system in the world by any means.
Right. Now, when you're writing, because again, like you said, once you do all of this research and you're putting all the facts together, and then you're bringing the fictional piece in there to make this a wonderful story about these particular individuals, how do you break that down? Do you write in order, or do you write as it comes to you with all of your Post-it notes or what have you? How do you kind of bring it all together?
I'm a planner, really. So I've got a big sheet of paper, and I mean, the main thing is when you're doing the research, you're selecting which incidents are going to help your story, because what you've got to, I'm taking the facts, but I've got to try and fit them into a narrative curve, you know, that everybody expects from a novel, you know, the beginning and a middle and end, with character development, with a kind of something that makes the reader want to keep going, something that intrigues them, that they want to find out the answer to. So you've got that in mind, and I'm looking for events, true life, or ones that I can make up that are reasonably realistic, that are going to help the story. I mean, what I'm trying to do is to get a kind of emotional empathy for each of these women. So I'm looking for incidents that will, oh, look, there you go. I'm looking for incidents that will show their character. And And then I just kind of weave them together roughly chronologically, but sometimes you cheat because if it would fit a bit better further back, you might move the timeline a bit. And then if I have cheated, I'll always have a little note at the end saying
in the back, in the author's notes. Yes,
I
yes.
love author's notes. With other people's books, I always read the author's note first, even if it's got spoilers in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to know.
One thing that I do like too, Gill, is that guys, and this is like at the beginning, basically like instead of like a prologue, you have like a cast list. That is like super cool, or what have you, for you to have that cast list.
Yeah, I didn't know if people would find that off-putting, but for me, it seemed like there were quite a lot of characters because of everybody that was sitting around the round table. And I thought I'll just put a little note there in case anybody wants to flick back and see who Alec Woolcott was.
Yeah. And I think too, with the time period of it being the 1920s and everything that's like going on, and with these four amazing women too, I think that was like a nice personal touch to put that cast list in there. So I enjoyed the cast list.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, Jill, if I'm not mistaken, are you going to read a little snippet with us of whistles? All right, we are ready when you are.
So this is quite near the beginning. As I mentioned, when the novel starts, Dorothy Parker's marriage to Eddie is in trouble. And in fact, he's just left her 2 weeks before this scene takes place. And she's emotionally very fragile when she goes to the Algonquin Hotel, where they all used to meet every day, which they called the Gonk. So I will start there. Alec Woolcott turned up at the Gonk with a tall, good-looking man who had naughty eyes and the most pronounced widow's peak Dorothy had ever seen. "This is our famous Mrs. Parker," Alec said. "And this," he flung out an arm in flamboyant style, "is Charlie MacArthur, reporter for the New York American and budding playwright. You two should have a lot in common." Alec had a glitter of mischief about him, and Charlie was grinning widely. It was as if they'd been discussing her before they arrived, but she couldn't figure out what had been said. "I've heard all about you, of course," Charlie said, taking her hand and bowing over it in old-fashioned style. "But I don't understand why nobody told me how incredibly beautiful you are." It was a cheesy line, but no snarky innuendo leapt to Dottie's tongue. Instead, she gazed into his merry, dancing eyes, and a little switch clicked somewhere at the back of her brain. He looked fun. Charlie grabbed a chair and squeezed in beside her, so close their knees were touching. "I've been nagging Alec to introduce us for ages," he said. "You have?" It was unnerving the way he was looking her up and down. "I have an idea for you. I wondered if you might consider writing a political column for the New York American, a wry commentary on the follies of the great and the good. I loved what you said about Calvin Coolidge." Dottie shook her head. "Please don't quote back to me lines I've supposedly said. I never recognise them. And I hate to disappoint you, but I have no interest in writing about politics. Perhaps you should do it yourself. What kind of reporter are you anyway?" "I'm what they call a roving reporter. If a fishing boat goes missing off Maine in winter, send Charlie. If a mine collapses in West Virginia, send Charlie." "So where have you been roving today?" she asked, musing that he certainly had a roving eye. She hadn't been so closely examined since her last full medical. "In Little Italy, a woman stabbed her brother-in-law outside a speakeasy, and I got to interview and ask why. To cut a long story short, let's just say she was a bitter woman." He puckered his lips and screwed up his nose like a pig's snout. She laughed. "What have you got against bitter women?" Suddenly, he leaned his face close to hers, stuck out his tongue, and licked her cheek so quickly there was no time to stop him. She clapped her hand to the spot in astonishment. "I like your taste much better," he said. "In fact, it's my favourite flavour." "Of all the women you've ever licked," Dottie finished. "I'm flattered, I guess." She wiped her face with her fingers. "What kind of man would lick your face within minutes of meeting you? It was extraordinary, but very sexy."
Boys and girls, oh my goodness, there you have it. The Manhattan Girls, Gill Paul just gave us a snippet enough to wet our whistle. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited about that as well. And so, boys and girls, of course, here on the cafe, we have to play a round of this or that. But Jill, there's no right or wrong answer because it's all things according to you, my friend. Are you
Okay.
ready?
I'm ready, I think.
Okay. So, Jill, are you a morning person or a night owl?
Morning,
Okay.
definitely. Mhm.
Um, road trip or are we getting on a plane, my friend?
Well, the plane is not the fashionable thing to say, but yeah, I just like exotic locations. And yeah, and I am coming to Manhattan next week to go and have a cocktail in the Algonquin with my editor. And I can't swim the Atlantic, so I'll have to get on a plane.
Okay. All right. Are you a glass half empty or glass half full?
Oh, definitely full, half full. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Are you a fan of audiobooks or podcasts?
Podcasts, really. I don't really listen to audiobooks very often. I like paperbacks. I'm old fashioned that way, but I do read on my Kindle as well.
All right. Now, Jill, are we going to a small gala or a big, I'm sorry, a small intimate gala, I'm sorry, a small intimate event, or are we going to a large gala?
I think I prefer, I mean, both actually.
Okay.
My mother was such a party girl, and the one rule she taught me in life is never miss a party. She would just
Oh,
like go to everything, go to everything.
never
Why
miss
wouldn't
a
you?
party.
Yeah. So that was my mother's teaching on life. But I suppose I prefer smaller gatherings when you can have a more intimate conversation with people. But I would never turn down an invite to a big gala, whatever. I'm there. I'm your girl.
I love that. Okay, we getting ready to take a trip, Jill. Okay, are we going to the beach, my friend, or are we headed to the mountains?
Beach, because I'm a big
Okay,
swimmer, so I swim wherever I go. So probably
okay.
beach, yeah.
Now, this one, Jill, we have to know for the cafe. Are you ready for this one? Okay. Are you team tea, team coffee, or team something a little stronger?
I don't drink coffee at all, so let's rule that one out.
Okay.
I drink loads of herbal teas, but not
Okay.
sort of English breakfast tea, and absolutely something stronger if it's on offer. Are you offering?
All right, I love it. I love it. And so, and Jill, it's always fun to hear this or that from authors or what have you to see, what their take is or what have you. Like I said, it was no right or wrong answer because it was all things according to use. I love that. So, Jill, when you think about this a story as a whole, what is it that you want readers to take away from it?
Um, Picture of what life was like for women in the 1920s, and how many battles that they were fighting and winning so that we can have the freedom that we've got in our careers and in our lives today. And a little bit sort of bringing these women who were extraordinary back to light again, and also about female friendship and the importance of it and sticking. I mean, gosh, I don't know about you, but where would I be without my women friends? I can't even imagine.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. I love that. And of course, boys and girls, we do have a giveaway. The giveaway will be a copy of the Manhattan Girls. And Jill, the way that we do it here on Angel's Literary Cafe is that I'm going to go up and down the comment section, my friend, and you're going to tell me when to stop. And that person will be the winner of our
Okay.
giveaway on today. Are you ready?
Yep.
All right, here we go, boys and girls. Let's see. We're going up and down the comment section. Okay. Let's see. There we go. Veronica Lockett, you are the winner of a copy of the Manhattan Girls. Thank you so much for joining us. If you will inbox me your information, I will make sure that I get that over to Jill's people, and we will get you a copy of the Manhattan Girls out to you as well. And so, Jill, we got to know this, my friend. How can we get a copy of the Manhattan Girls? Those that don't have a copy already.
I think it's in all bookshops, independent, and whichever your favorite one is, it should be there. I hope so.
I love it, guys. There you have it. It is available where books are sold. Go out and get you a copy of the Manhattan Girls, and not only get you a copy, but tell a friend, tell everybody about the Manhattan Girls. That this is an amazing story of Dorothy Parker and her friends that you do not want to miss as well. And so, Jill, outside of that, we also want to know, how can we stay connected with you?
I'm on most social media. I've even been persuaded to go on TikTok, which my publishers said I had to go on. And I am the least technical. Technical stuff is not my superpower, but I've got a little bit of help, and I'm even on TikTok now, dancing. I made a promise on social media that I was going to try and learn the Charleston for my publication date. And I'm really not a good dancer. And also, it's so hard. It's really hard. You learn the forward and backward step, and then it says swivel your feet at the same time. And I'm like, what? So anyway, I've got a little video on TikTok, and it's also on Instagram of me dancing the Charleston.
I love that. I love that. Boys and girls, it's awesome. So look, if you want to see the video of Gill Paul learning and doing a little bit of the Charleston, hop over to TikTok and watch that as well. Be sure, guys, to follow her on social media. And Gill, is there a website or a newsletter that they can sign up for as well?
All of that. Yeah, I've got a website, gillpaul.com. And there's a link there to sign up for my newsletter, which I only do about every 3 months. But I always do lots of giveaways and the inside story, the news that nobody else knows.
I love that. I love that. There you have it, guys. Check her out on her website as well. We'll be sure to put her website in the comment section so you guys can check that out and sign up for her newsletter. Follow her on social media. And Gill, I want to allow you to have the last words to the people on today.
Listen, I'm just so grateful to you, Angela, for inviting me along. It's really lovely to be here and chat to you. It's just, I had watched a few of your literary cafes before this, and they're just like party central. You just have such a good time with all your guests. So I was just delighted when I heard that I was coming to talk to you. It's been wonderful.
Thank you so much. Thank you for hanging out with us and celebrating the release of your latest book, The Manhattan Girls. Boys and girls, again, The Manhattan Girls is available now. It's available in stores where books are sold, and it's available in ebook, print copy. And Gill, is it available in audio as well?
It is, yes. And it's narrated by a woman called Lisa Flanagan, who's wonderful.
I love that. Boys and girls, there you have it. All 3 formats. We love when books are in all 3 formats: audiobook, print, and ebook copy. So whatever suits your fancy, go out and get it and tell a friend about it as well. And guys, as we always say here at the cafe, have an amazing day, because we're having an amazing day. And don't forget, once you read it or once you're listening to it, leave a review. I know that Gill Paul will be so appreciative of that as well. That's it. That's our show. And we'll see you next time, boys and girls. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.